It's very interesting that we decided to organize this webinar to discuss about the future of the judicial and robots. Already a year and a half ago, I started researching on artificial intelligence and its impact for us legal professionals and its impact in the legal system. And one of the news that really impacted me was this one about the Estonian government and its decision to develop robots to take judicial decisions on certain kind of cases. Then I read about China doing the same, and that really impressed me, and I started reading about it. Today we are very proud to have with us three speakers, three academics who will help us to understand where are we at the moment in this field. Are there good and solutions of artificial intelligence solutions to deliver justice? Where are they being implemented? Is there a future, will there be a future where all judicial decisions might be taken by machines? Is that a good solution, not the risk? Those are the kind of things we are going to discuss with Paulius Astromskis. He is a lawyer and entrepreneur and vice dean at Vytautas Magnus University in Lithuania, with Arthur Dyevre, professor at the Leuven University in Belgium, Maria Dimitru, researcher at the Faculty of Law, Administration and Economics at the University of Wroclaw in Poland. Thank you to the three of you. I would like you to introduce yourselves after I also explain our attendees the program we have for this afternoon. We hope to be with you like for around 1 hour, but we are happy if we can stay longer because we might have a lot of questions, and I think most of us are willing to stay here with you, but we will try to stick to the timetable. First, after the introduction, we will also do a brief introduction on terminology, because what we know is that this is a very nice topic for journalists, and sometimes there are things which are not clear. So what is a robot judge? What is judicial, and what is artificial intelligence applied for the judicial? So beforehand, we will explain when we talk about this, what do we refer to? Then each of our speakers will have between 5 to 10 minutes to explain us some ideas, some key ideas on the field. And finally, you will have the main role, and you can ask us things, you can give us your opinion, because we are sure that among the attendees of today, we have a lot of experts. So first of all, please, Paulius, can you please give us some information about you? What do you do? Why are you so interested in artificial intelligence?
Hello, I don't know if I'm passing along.
Hi. So thank you for introducing me. My name is Paulius Astromskis. I'm a Lithuanian scholar and Lithuanian practitioner, lawyer. And I'm also a vice dean for digitization at the Faculty of Law at Vytautas Magnus University. And I'm also a principal investigator in Future Law Lab, mostly dealing with technology law and legal tech issues. And the topic of robot judges, we have started exploring and explaining and dealing with maybe 5 years ago with slogan "Law without lawyers." So I'm pretty much interested in the field of AI in the judicial system and in legal practice. So I'm happy to be here and share some of my insights and opinion.
Thank you, Paulius. Arthur, can you please tell us some things about you?
My name is Arthur Dyevre. I'm a professor at the University of Leuven in Belgium, where I conduct research on judicial decision making, so how judges make decisions. And for that purpose, myself and my team, we are constructing large data sets, so corpora of billions of judicial decisions, which we are creating, analyzing. We're trying to develop ways to classify legal documents, as well as to predict judicial outcomes. Both for like more academic research purposes, but also with a view to roll out some of these ideas and innovations in legal practice.
Thank you, Arthur. So, Maria, Dimitru, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is María Dimittruk. I'm a researcher at Research Center on Legal and Economic Issues of Electronic Communication at the University of Wroclaw in Poland. And since, I believe, 2014, I have conducted research on the use of artificial intelligence in law, like e-justice issues, the impact of technology on administration of justice. I write my PhD thesis on the use of artificial intelligence in civil proceedings. I'm also a practicing attorney at law. I'm a member of New Technology Commission of the European Bar Federation. I'm also a member of the International Association for Artificial Intelligence and Law, and it's really a pleasure for me to take part in this webinar, and thank you, Maria, for inviting me here.
Okay, thank you to all of you for accepting. It's really our honor to have you here. I think the three of you will give us very different point of view, but before, as I said, I think it's interesting to clarify minimum basic concepts. So Maria, can you please start explaining us what means artificial intelligence applied to the judicial field? So what is the judicial field and what is not? Because artificial intelligence has many applications in the legal, for the legal professions, but today we are going to only concentrate on the judicial application.
Yes, so you mentioned the judicial systems, judicial field. So yes, these are like, this is organizational system of judicial authorities, mostly courts, that interpret and apply law in the name of the state. And constant development of artificial intelligence tools is the opportunity to improve the functioning of administration of justice. And one of the ideas of such improvement is the attempt to automate the judicial proceedings by creating artificial intelligence systems having the ability to decide legal cases unassisted or support human judges. And authorities of many countries around the world are deploying automation tools in decision-making processes in the judiciary. And the scope of application of this automated judicial system, which are nowadays like always based on artificial intelligence, is both like ranging from the improvement and acceleration of organizational or let's say office-based court tasks to the automation of substantive judicial decisions. And therefore, the extent of court automation may take different forms, such as improving task managing efficiency, assisting in adjudication, or even unassisted conducting of core judicial activities. And for me, there are actually two main models of judicial automation, and based on the degree of automation and also the level of human involvement in the decision-making process, two types of this judicial automation can be distinguished. Like the first one is fully automated decision-making, and the second one is partially automated, let's say semi-automated decision-making. So the first model, the fully automated decision-making, we've got the AI system, which has a role of a decision maker. It independently conducts tasks needed to reach a decision, judicial decision, including like legal reasoning. And in this model, the automated system would be authorized to make a decision binding to parties to court proceedings. so natural and legal persons involved in the court process, and it would be without any human authorization. And on the other hand, semi-automated decision-making, actually it consists of two submodels. One of them is based on the assumption that an automated system can serve as a decision aid for judges and court clerks. And the second one assumes that automated system may serve also as like an adversary and challenge human decision making. And in both cases, the decision making process is conducted by a human. It's important to say that, but the human is supported by automated systems, so artificial intelligence systems. And when AI serves as a decision aid, the AI system is designed to help the judge's decision making, and this assistance consists of providing a human with a proposal for the judicial decision, the judgment, or deciding on the main factors that determine the final decision taken by a judge. But AI can also serve as a booster to human judicial decision making. And in this second form of semi-automated decision making, the AI system acts as an adversary. AI is not used as an aid for generating judicial decision, but as a critique of a decision that was previously made by human. And the goal of a system operation is to confront human arguments, human conclusion. It could like reveal weaknesses of human decision making, show potential solutions, point at omitted evidence, present legislation or a case law that was omitted. So we've got two main models, fully and semi-automated decision making, and the fully automated decision making can be associated with the idea of robot judges. But like for me, consideration on an autonomous AI judge, that a system that could successfully perform like any intellectual task that a human judge can perform is a bit premature. But obviously, the application of artificial intelligence in the judiciary does not have like futurological nature. It's not a science fiction, and yeah, it would or has a potential to significantly reshape the judiciary, but in organizational, institutional, and even procedural aspect.
Thank you so much. Any of the two of you want to add something to this explanation about the kind of artificial intelligence that replaces robots, judges, and decides or just help judges? Paulius and
well, if I may, I think I mean often people have this naive picture of like the robot judge as being some kind of humanoid, maybe with a horsehair wig like British judges wear. In reality, I mean, I think it's very important to understand first the diversity of legal disputes. Legal disputes range all the way from very simple cases like speeding fines, all the way to complex criminal and or financial cases which involve complex factual determination and the balancing of a wide range of principles. And not all these cases, not all these legal disputes are amenable to automation to the same extent. In many ways, and as Maria said, automation is already part of the legal reality. Even if you think, I mean, certainly many in the attendance have already once in their lifetime been fined for speeding. They've received the fine at home. They were told when and how they violated the law. All this was automated. You can see this as a kind of judicial robot. But here we're talking about an area where the rules are clear, the rules are few, and where the facts are relatively simple. So these aspects of these kind of cases will see, I think, just as small small legal disputes involving your neighbors, or disputes about the sale of a good of relatively low value. I mean, these will see an increasingly some kind of nearly full automation, although when they are actually more complex questions, some human supervisors will be invited to step in. But then there are aspects of judging that will probably never be fully automated. So I think when we're talking about the robot judge, we have to understand that automation will affect different cases, different area of the law differently.
Okay. Okay. So Paulius, do you want to add something to this introduction on concepts?
Yeah, just briefly of an idea and a concept of automation. And I think it is important to state that the automation of judicial process or judicial decision making and the need of that comes like in every other industry. The need to speed up the process, the speed of justice, to reduce the costs and to avoid the mistakes in some cases. Because like in every other industry in the judicial decision making, which currently rests upon human being, it involves the same aspects of human rationality and human limitations. I mean, humans are emotional, physically and mentally. It has physical and mental limits. Humans sometimes act opportunistically in terms of political self-interest or financial self-interest, and therefore the judicial process is lengthy, is costly, and it involves still a lot of mistakes, which sometimes ruins the lives of the litigants. So the idea to take at least the typical cases and the typical workload and automate it as much as possible seems a very logical step, like in every other industry. However, I completely agree with Arthur that there are some aspects of judicially and of judging activities which might never be automated. I mean, there is some, especially in a complex new cases with new issues where judicial process and judicial decision making involves creativity, or setting up the new interpretations and new rules, explaining the decisions, explaining the law, explaining the applicability is yet far from being automated. So as I see the processes which are currently undergoing in the courts, as Arthur already mentioned, some typical or small cases, the technical cases, which involves a simple chain of fact-finding, rule application, and decision without any complex explanations, are already automated and will be automated in more and more in the future. However, there is still some aspects of creativity and the sense of justice which will be left to the human beings. So in that aspect, I don't see, in my opinion, I don't see the fully automated courts anytime in the future. I don't see the robot judges as such, and I'm very much thinking of and agree that semi-automated or assisting to the human judges, to those kind of systems really have a potential in the judicial system. So this is my point of view and my opinion. Yeah.
Okay, so let me add to what you all have said a couple of ideas. I think we, of course, have to differentiate between the decision making, the final decision of the judge, and there, as you, I also believe that only for like small claims and things which, let's say, don't have any possible other questioning or other solution, I think there these robot judges might make sense, as they are already making sense in countries as Holland and China. We have examples, and apparently they're working very well. But it's true that judges can get a lot of help from artificial intelligence. And there, I think it's interesting to start thinking how and where. And maybe it's nice to I'm going to read you my list of fields where I think judges should be exploring the possibilities of artificial intelligence. For instance, research, looking for information, classification, automatic classification of document and automatic retrieval, also conflict of interest, and as well as tools as the very criticized one, Compass, or the one that the Argentinians or Colombian are already using, called Prometea. So there are already tools which are helping judges to take better decisions in a more efficient way. And I think those are the tools we have to start talking, but as well about those experiments which are functioning, because like I'm thinking now with, for instance, this coronavirus crisis here at the moment, we have a big problem with the judges having to attend their works, to their work, and of course taking the risk of getting sick, plus thousands of claims of companies who need to get the judge permission to send their employees home during the crisis. So this is probably not a difficult decision, and is probably the typical case where if A happens, B can be the decision. Probably, I'm not sure because I'm not a labor law expert, but probably this is a case where artificial intelligence could be helpful. But okay, this said, let's give you 5 to 10 minutes so that you can explain us some ideas on the field itself. What are your conclusions? What is what you would like the audience to know about this topic? So we use the same order. Paulius, is your turn because you are letter A, and then Arthur, and then Maria. Paulius, please.
Yeah, so it's, as already mentioned, the concept and the idea which hooked me up personally on the idea of having law without lawyers is that the mistakes and the human nature to make mistakes, and the limits of human beings. And currently the judicial system has the monopoly of human beings making decisions, and therefore we have all across the world the system where the judicial system, which is expensive, which is slow, and which is full of mistakes. At least statistically in Lithuania we have almost half of first instance court decisions squashed or reversed at the appellate process, and therefore this is very troubling trends which invites certain technological solutions to make the judiciary more speedy, less costly, and of bigger quality. In that sense, artificial intelligence and automation has very big potential in order to at least take out the typical cases, typical caseload from the judges, and allowing the creative beings, the human beings, to sit on the more complex issues and on the complex litigations. However, the systems itself has a lot of weaknesses yet, and we might have, you know, good assisting systems for case management, for the e-filing, for some case predictions, and etc. But it's still, the AI in a current state is pretty much primitive, and therefore I would be a bit skeptical of allowing it for full automation for decisions, especially when it comes to explainability of AI decision making and bias issues, which are still probably the biggest issues of application of AI in the courts. Also, human beings are also have a lot of biases, and sometimes decisions are full of biases. And AI, which learns on a big data sets, are getting big biases from the human biases that are in the decisions and in the data sets. So in that sense, of course, the biases of AI might be seen as a you know, the lack or the quality thing of a system itself. However, it might be also seen as the exposure of the problem which exists in a current judicial system. So I think that if the scholars and if the researchers will get to the point of creating the systems which are capable of reasoning or capable of explanation of a decision, it might be the bias-free systems. So when we will have a pretty good chance to give more and more caseload to the AI systems. However, I'm very much skeptical of fully automated judicial system, especially when it comes to the a little bit more complex cases and cases which has no precedence. There is also another aspect of judicial process which is related to the standing and of the sense of justice for the litigants itself. It is that I'm myself, I'm a lawyer, I'm a practitioner, and sometimes I see that my clients are getting satisfaction simply of being capable to explain their cases to the governmental institution, to have a standing, to look in the eyes of a defendant or to another party to explain themselves. And there is this you know, case presentation process which allows you to argue on the go in the courtroom, which is a big part of judicial system, which I don't think can be replaced of you know, arguing before some computer with microphone and with some advanced AI. So there is this human touch in the judiciary, and the satisfaction of being able to present your case before the human fellow. So there is these, you know, creativity part and the sense of justice part, which I don't think might be replaced even by the most advanced AI sometime in the future. So for everything else, as I already said in the beginning, the judicial or legal system is the same, or let's say undergoes the same procedures of automation as any other industry. I mean, It's just a matter of efficiency, the cost saving, the access to justice issues, which simply cannot be solved by the human beings, or making more and more judges on a bench. So the time has come to automate at least the typical cases, and the time is now to do that. So for that, of course, for researchers, it is important to have an open data of the courts, to have an open data for the cases themselves, to be able to create the AI systems which are capable of getting the court load out of human hands, at least from a typical cases. Currently, the problem we have, at least in Lithuania, is that the court systems are closed. They are not providing the sufficient data to make even research. So having the closed data, we simply are unable to use the technologies, the advanced technologies which are in the market to solve some problems. So in my opinion, the human has problems, AI has problems, but it can be solved only through the cooperation and solving the monopoly of justice, which is currently in the hands of human beings. So I'm pretty much for the automation, but I'm pretty much skeptical on having the fully automated judicial process. That's my opinion.
Okay, thank you, Paulius. We will probably go back when we talk about the Q&A. I would like you to explain us what is sense of justice, because you mentioned that, and I think it's a really nice concept, and maybe you can tell us more later on. So, Arthur, do you want to explain us your point of view? And I would love if you can tell the audience about your experiment with this bias of in competition law.
I mean, first, I thought it would be good for our audience to get a sense of, in the real world, so what shape automation has taken. And I would first like actually to consider the case of, non-judicial cases of eBay and Alibaba. I mean, if you've ever purchased or sold something on eBay or Alibaba, I mean, you know that sometimes there are disputes arise. And so these platforms have to manage millions of disputes every year. And much of it is, in fact, automated. So for many ODR, online dispute resolutions, and judicial automation projects, eBay and Alibaba have served as a sort of blueprint. And so if you take one example of a successful online dispute resolution and automation, there is a court in British Columbia, the Tribunal for Civil Resolution. And so, I mean, the platform, the way the platform works is the following. I mean, when you file a case, then the system tells you how to serve notice, then how to what the law is, and eventually, if all these things are not enough, there might be a human human facilitator may step in. And that's of course for relatively small claims. Although even in Canada, they're trying now to scale up the project. But you can see, I think this is a great example of how you're going to see automation at work in most judicial systems. So some aspects, especially the early phases of small claim disputes, are going to be automated. You know, in many judicial systems, most disputes don't go to trial, so they're settled. And the idea is that all these steps can be facilitated by automated tools. So I think that gives you an idea of what what shape automation is going to take when it comes to small claims. Then for more in more complex areas of the law, we're going to see, as Maria and Paulius explained, more of more support systems. The debate about robot judges has largely also turned on the examples of the deployment of AI systems in the United States in criminal cases to decide on a recidivism decision, because judges have to decide whether someone can be released from prison, and they have to assess the probability of recidivism. And it's true that machine learning, so legal analytics, have proved to do a relatively good job at predicting who is most likely to commit a crime after being released. Of course, the debate, some people have pointed out biases in the system. And it's quite often the debate about automation in the legal field is often turns around the issue of biases, as is the case with I think the deployment of AI technology, many AI technologies in general. What is interesting there is that AI technologies can, when they are poorly designed or badly deployed, can amplify biases, but they can also serve they can also do the opposite. In fact, AI systems, AI technologies can serve to reduce human biases. And I think in some of these more sophisticated cases where AI will be deployed mainly as a supporting tool for judges to help them make better decisions, I think AI will have, or AI certainly has the potential to serve as a way to reduce biases. So I just wanted to highlight these examples of the development of AI in the real world, so that audience understand that this is already something that is part of the real world. These are certainly examples that some may have heard about, and they prove for the most quite successful in improving both quality of dispute resolution and judicial decision making when it comes to more complex decisions.
Thank you. Do you want to share your competition experiment? Because I think that's quite interesting as an approach to understanding bias.
Well, human judges, because the image we often have of the image of the good judge that is peddled in public debates is often, in fact, a kind of robot. Someone who is only applying rules and only legal reasoning to the resolution of legal disputes. But in the real world, we know from research, and I know also from the research I've conducted, that judges have biases. They have political biases. So the political inclination influences the decisions. And one example is the research we've done on the General Court of the European Union. And we ask lawyers who know the judges, who've met the judges on different occasions, who've argued cases before the court, and we ask them to rate the judges on various dimensions: their competition law expertise, their business friendliness, their support for European integration. And we then used these ratings to see whether we could use them to predict judicial outcomes. And it turns out that yes, even though they cannot explain all decisions, they certainly have a predictive power. And so judges who are more business friendly are more likely to rule against the European Commission in competition cases, we also see that those who are more pro-integration, on the contrary, are less likely to rule against the European Commission, and that's also controlling for the characteristics of these cases. I've also done experiments interestingly with law students, and when you actually have law students adjudicating hypothetical cases, they do also show political biases. And for example, in criminal cases, more conservative law students tend to actually hand out harsher sentences compared to more left-wing students. So biases exist in judicial decision-making. They're probably unavoidable. But in some instances, AI technologies can help us identify better these biases and possibly improve the quality of the decision from the vantage point of legal subjects.
Yeah, I fully agree. And in fact, the other day in Valencia, we were discussing on this issue, and a judge said that all judges have a black box. So it's true, each judge is a black box. So I fully agree with your point of view. I think that AI could really help to, let's say, eliminate at least partly the black boxes. So let's go with Maria. Maria, the room is yours.
I can agree with all of you. As you, Maria, has already mentioned, the AI application in the field of justice has a great potential to accelerate the judicial proceedings, to unify the case law, to increase the efficiency of the judiciary. But before any properly functioning AI system is created and introduced into a justice system, potential advantages and risks of such automation need to be examined. And I would like to mention or discuss two main risks. Both of them were already mentioned. The first one is of a technological nature, and I believe all of you have mentioned it. It's the opaqueness of modern AI systems, because modern machine learning algorithms are non-explainable, difficult for people to understand. They are unable to demonstrate an internal mechanism of their work, and these models are usually applied and the third information is provided about what exactly makes them arrive at their decisions, because modern machine learning algorithms are capable of working purely from observations and creating their own representation of the world they base their predictions of. And these machine learning abilities make the outcomes hard to interpret. And usually the most accurate AI models are not very explainable. For example, like deep neural nets or random forest or boosted trees. And on the other hand, the most interpretable for humans models are less accurate, like logistic regression. And the black box nature of AI systems can lead the users of AI systems to doubt the reliability of the decision that is provided, and the lack of understanding of the technology can result in distrust and to eventual failure of the technology to be accepted and used. And in the context of the AI applications in judiciary, the problem of the opacity can be potentially dangerous to the success of potential implementation actions. And concerning the use of black box AI in the administration of justice, the impossibility of understanding and validating the decision process of the system is a clear drawback. And this is particularly important because one of the requirements for the proper functioning of the AI system automating any judicial proceedings must be its ability to explicate its decisions and actions. And there are attempts to overcome the problem of opaqueness. For example, research on XAI. It means explainable artificial intelligence. XAI is a research field aims to create understandable AI models with high efficiency level and make AI system results more understandable to humans. But these are, let's say, preliminary efforts, and thus unfortunately cannot be said that it's like a scientific triumph. And somebody have has already asked about it. Part of the difficulty in the research on the XAI lies in understanding what an explanation should actually contain. And the answer depends on the purpose of such explanation. And in case of automated judicial proceedings, the most significant for me is the type of explanation which makes it possible to control the reliability of the decision. And if AI is used as a decision maker, whatever, if it's a first instance fully automated procedure, or it's some kind of pre-litigation resolution, or it's only a suggestion for a human judge, it should include an explanation that can be verified by human judge. And without this ability to issue an explanation, the machine will be impossible to control. And the lack of human control, at least during, I don't know, appeal proceedings, should be considered unacceptable. It's unacceptable for me. And on the other hand, a decision taken without explanation by an AI system, non-explainable machine learning algorithm, even if correct, would have to be revoked in case that dissatisfied party appeals against it. In such situation, like, nobody would be able to confirm that the system reasoning was correct and should not be repealed. And this in turn would result in the necessity to repeat the whole AI conducted trial from the very beginning with a participation of human judge, which is in a contradiction to the fundamental advantage of the use of artificial intelligence in the judiciary, which is the improvement of the efficiency of the justice. But on the other hand, there are not only technical issues or risks or challenges, there are also many legal problems that can be potentially challenging when speaking about the judicial automation. And it has already been said, the discriminatory trends in modern AI systems. Because unfortunately, the public use of AI systems had varying degrees of success, and some of the most known and fairly controversial ones include HART, UK system, HART assessment risk tools. It's an AI-based technology created to help the UK police to make custodial decisions based on the recidivism risk assessment. And it has been described as reinforcing the bias. And similarly, I believe the most popular example COMPAS that Maria has already mentioned. So the US Correctional Offender Management Profiling for Alternative Sanction. It is also risk assessment algorithms, firstly created in order to predict potential hotspots of violent crime for police, but then it was also used to assess the risk of recidivism during the court proceedings. So COMPAS was used to forecast which criminals are most likely to reoffend. It was highly efficient, but it ran a high risk of racial profiling and raised question about non-discrimination, because Black offenders were seen through COMPAS almost twice as likely as white offenders to be labeled as a higher risk of recidivism, but not actually reoffending, in fact. And on the other hand, the COMPAS software produced the opposite results for white offenders. They were identified to be labeled as lower risk, more likely than Black offenders, despite their criminal history displaying higher probabilities to reoffend. And this information about AI biases can be surprising for like ordinary people, because technology used to be regarded as neutral, impartial, and decision-making systems powered by AI as a great tool to augment human judgments and reduce both conscious and unconscious biases. But from the perspective of machine learning algorithms, so this opinion can be seen as being a little bit outdated. And in fact, data-driven decision may reflect and amplify existing cultural prejudices. And this example shows that the use of artificial intelligence in justice systems cannot have only great advantages, but also serious weaknesses. And of course, the efficiency is a clear advantage of the use of AI, but it cannot overrule other aspects as one of the most important for me ethical aspects of the use of judicial use of artificial intelligence systems. So the question whether judicial proceedings should be automated, I would answer like yes, but under many conditions. Under the condition that AI system will perform all assigned duties as well as human judge, or even better. So the automated judicial proceeding should be considered acceptable, but only if its function performed by AI tools will be carried out at least as good as currently, including ethical perspective, and preferably much better. So before any properly functioning AI judge, robot judge, whatever system is created, so the full picture should be seen, full picture of potential advantages and disadvantages, because like both full automation of legal proceedings and the use of AI tools as judge support systems must remain in line with both the democratic rule of law and follow provisions shaping the content and the form of judicial proceeding, and without detailed analysis of the compliance of AI implementation with national, European, international legal order is completely like useless. And it's actually not good to implement new technological solutions or raise this hypothesis of like robots will replace us, lawyers, without like really focus on every aspect of this whole situation. And it's also good to mention one specific initiative in the field of ethical use of artificial intelligence in the judiciary. It's the 1 year ago, the European Commission of the Efficiency of Justice, is cepers, adopted a European Ethical Charter of the use of artificial intelligence in judiciary, and it is cepers is a Council of Europe expert body, and actually it formally adopted 5 fundamental principles of the use of AI in judicial system and its environment. Principles of the first one was about fundamental rights, the second one about non-discrimination, the third one, principle of quality and security, a principle of transparency, impartiality, and fairness, and the fifth one was principle under user control. And obviously, this authors like know that it were only ethical guidelines to follow, but actually it's a good first step to do like anything, because it's a good direction. I strongly believe that these kinds of initiatives should be conducted as often as possible, but it should also take form maybe of a like legislative initiatives. Maybe European Union should take an interest in this field. Do I have time to mention one more thing, Maria?
Yes, yes.
Because like it is said that actually in order to avoid all these difficulties connected with the full automation of judicial proceedings, let's focus on judicial support systems. And it is worth to present the psychological research showing that despite appearances, the use of artificial intelligence tools can be only as a supportive tools, can be potentially dangerous tools, because it might have seen that this model is neutral. Decision-making is still in human hands. However, it turns out that using AI only as a judge supporting system may have actually the same result as full automation of judicial proceedings, and it is connected with some psychological effects or the persuasiveness of decision supporting system based on artificial intelligence. It was a researcher, I believe it was Dutch researcher, Dyevre, took a psychological experiment examining how lawyers respond to AI-generated suggestions while resolving a case. And there were 2 groups of participating lawyers, both were resolving legal cases, and one group with the support of AI system, and the second one like by themselves. And the experiment has shown that lawyers have difficulties with the assessment of the accuracy of the automatically generated advice. They focus on argumentation presented by the system and ignore alternatives. They have too much trust that the system works, and as a result, they like carelessly accept the system advice, including incorrect pieces of advice put into experiment on purpose. And in the case of being advised by 2 entities, the system and another lawyer, another like human, participants considered the system advice to be more objective and rational than the human one, even when the human advice was identical as the system's. So as a result, the participant performing legal reasoning without the support of a system achieved better results than the participant using support systems. So the participants conduct results from a certain psychological reaction, a desire to avoid excessive effort when processing information. And the research proves that people use computer system to reduce the decision-making process and not to increase the quality of their own decision. And it can be like probable that the use of AI-generated support in judiciary would not improve adjudication, but could even make it even worse, because relying on the decision automatically generated by AI support system may result in the fact that decision about legal issues of the citizens would actually be made by computer program, despite the impression that all principles of human adjudication process are obeyed. And ignoring this fact in legal analysis of the use of AI in the judiciary like could bring any potential application of AI in judiciary to the level of like methodological or scientific carelessness, and we have to remember about it.
Okay, thank you, Maria. I'm going to try to summarize like some conclusions and then give the room to the audience. So my first conclusion is that let's say that the system we have at the moment in most countries to solve conflicts is not perfect. And I think that that's relevant, because if the system would be perfect, then we didn't need to change it. But we have spoken about slow justice, unfair justice, etc., etc. Therefore, there is probably room to discuss how can we get out of this system that we have at the moment. There, Arthur has told us about the system that they're using in British Columbia, and apparently that successful companies as eBay and Alibaba are using these online conflict mediation solutions, and they are working. Maybe that's something for the judicial to work on improving the kind of systems that stop conflicts getting into the courts, because we know already that we don't have enough capacity to solve all the conflicts that are coming into the courts. We all agree that using artificial intelligence within the judicial system is a risky business, because we're talking about justice, and we are talking about the independency of judges. Therefore, if artificial intelligence is used, it should be like perfect artificial intelligence, transparent algorithm, explainable artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence that responds to high standards, high ethical standards, and maybe to the laws that we will probably have in the future, hopefully. Then we all agree that judges are human beings, and therefore they sometimes are tired. They all have their ideologies and bias, of course. And why not using tools that can help them to be more fair, to be fair in their decisions? But of course, both lawyers and judges and all professionals that are to use these kind of technologies have to first understand what they mean and how they work. And that's not simple. I guess that we all have to acquire knowledge and skills, like critical thinking, for instance, in order not to be trapped in a new kind of even more unfair justice. I think with that, I have summarized more or less what you have said. I don't know if you want to add, each of you, one last sentence with your personal conclusion on this, and then we can have a discussion, and whoever wants to stay can stay, and whoever needs to go for any kind of personal obligation, feel free. We have lots of interesting questions anyway. So please, Maria, if you want to start, and then it will be Arthur, and then finally Paulius can close the webinar. Thank you to all of you, and we will stay here answering the questions.
So I would like to add one tip for like future lawyers, or even us lawyers today, but how to prepare for future. I believe that the key is to change the legal education, the way how today lawyers are taught, because the legal education usually appreciates like tradition more than, let's say, experimentation, and also the attitude of lawyers toward technological innovation is generally rather cautious, and it needs to be changed. Higher legal education, education within like bars, will be greatly impacted by the current and future development of artificial intelligence, and universities, educators have to be aware of threats that AI poses, especially to white-collar professions, and prepare lawyers, students for the new reality, for example, for jobs that have not yet been created, like smart contract programmers and so on. And the AI-driven legal sphere will require from lawyers to possess new legal competences. And therefore, in the course of legal education, high emphasis should be placed on the development, improvement, and law students have to be taught how AI system works, how they process data, what is the difference between like rule-based reasoning and machine learning models, how the AI models can be used in lawyers' daily practice, what are the limitations, what are the risks connected with the development of AI legal tools. And like these new technological work ecosystems of a lawyer based on artificial intelligence, I believe will change the general competencies of a future lawyer, also judge, from like A to Z independent case handling to the verification of a work result of AI systems. So the element of control will be an essence of the future legal work. And like we have to remember about this competence, this specific skill during the whole education process. And so a young lawyer should prepare firstly by becoming familiar with technology, how it works. Secondly, by developing like a nimble approach to new tool, embracing a greater advisory or supervisory role. And finally, like by growing to the new legal partner, and his or her legal education should correspond with this requirement. And like in the near future, there will be no question, are you a good professional, but rather, are you good in cooperation with AI systems? Does your competencies reflect or complement abilities of AI systems? And I strongly think that although AI threatens status quo in legal education, in legal practice, in every aspect of the legal field, it probably does not mean the end of existing large legal industry and the legal higher education, but it also does not mean that both of them should remain unchanged, and exactly the opposite. They must be transformed as soon as possible. Otherwise, nobody can promise that like automation processes will not eventually put lawyers out of business, and we have to remember about that.
Thank you, Arthur.
Agree with Maria that new technologies rarely replace people wholesale. Instead, they create new opportunities. They open up, possibilities for new business models. And I think the same applies for judges. We have to find, we have to invent the ways. You have to find out where automation is possible, in which way, how automation and AI systems can support judges. And there are the answers will be different for different aspects of the law. There will still be flesh and blood judges around, but there will be aspects that will be automated, and that will also open up new possibilities. For example, we could imagine a future where legal disputes or going to court is much cheaper, is much easier, something you can do on your mobile phone, and perhaps there will be people actually around you actually handling 3 or 4 lawsuits at the same time, just on the mobile phone, for very simple, low-value consumer products issues. So it could actually open up a new world where litigation is something that is often less dramatic, but where it also serves law enforcement better, and also the defense, serves to defend the rights of the most vulnerable in our society. So we have to find lawyers, have to find young lawyers, new lawyers, have to find the best ways to implement and deploy the possibilities. Find the best ways to deploy these new tools.
Yeah, you know that the British government has already said that they want to use these virtual courts now with the coronavirus. They just said that today or yesterday for penal cases. So, yeah, I fully agree with you. And I really think we have to keep in mind that our system is not perfect, and that we have to imagine having this technology, how can we have a better system? Okay, so finally, Paulius, can you give us your last remarks, please?
So I think technologies and AI among themselves has a great potential to make justice more accessible. And I also think that for the person who suffers injustice and whose rights are damaged or challenged, goes to the court or goes to the government seeking for justice, and the core element of a justice system is the trust in the justice system. So currently it's, litigants has no choice in terms of whom to trust. We have only human-based courts, and we have only human-based system, which sometimes also is difficult to understand. So the more trust we raise in the judicial system, in the judicial process, the bigger justice we will achieve, and the more trustworthy justice procedure we will achieve. In terms of artificial intelligence, the trust in AI comes mostly from understanding how the system works. And understanding comes from 2 ends. On one end, the developers of AI, the researchers, has to explain in the lay terms to the general public, well, what kind of rules AI is using, what kind of how AI arrives at certain evaluation or certain decisions. So explainability comes from the developers, researchers to explain. But there is also another end, which is the capability to understand the explanations, and that goes to the core of preparation of lawyers, and lawyers has to be prepared to understand the technologies and understand how it works, especially the judges, and especially the judges who will be taking the appeals on the decisions which are made in the support of AI. There was a lot of questions of how can we appeal something which is unexplainable or made by the black box. Well, I mean, the appeal process and the review of such decisions, the litigation of AI-made evaluations will certainly need the the capability to understand and to explain and to analyze how AI works. And that brings me to the last sentence that you, Maria, presented, both of you, Marias, presented, that, well, we need a bit different legal education involving the core technologies and teaching future lawyers how to analyze, how to understand the decisions and evaluations made by AI. So all of this, new kind of educations, new kind of lawyers, new kind of processes is all of them builds up the trust in the system. And as soon as we will get to the explainable AI and understandable AI, we will get more trust. And with that trust comes the better quality justice. So I'm very much optimistic that, during that time we will reach the point that we will certainly have the less caseload and the more trustworthy judicial system than we have now. So.
Okay, fantastic that we finished with these very optimistic words. Now the room is yours. I don't know if Julia, can they talk, or do we have to go through the chat and read the questions and then answer?
Everybody can unmute his phone or her phone themselves. So if they unmute, they can talk.
Okay, so yeah, please unmute yourself. So how do we moderate it? Shall I say who can talk, Julia, or you can say that? Just so that they don't talk at the same time.
Maybe we ask someone to volunteer and start if somebody wants to.
Okay, so please go ahead. Whoever wants to talk, there are several questions.
Hi, Maria. Do you hear me?
Hello. Hi, Lisa. How are you doing?
Good, good. So greetings from the Netherlands to everybody. Claudia Gonçalo in Portugal. I see that you are there as well, and it's always nice to know. I did put some comments on the chat. I am a passionate on AI. I work with a community, a local community in The Hague, AI Lab. And I'm now participating in the AI task force for the European Policy Center. And I don't want to be negative, but my question for all the speakers is, do you think is wise that we start trying to use something that we do not understand in one of the most vital and sensitive areas of any society as justice? Again, we all understand the need for justice, but can the remedy be worse than the disease? It's just a small provocation to start, and with that, I will mute myself again and wish you all a good night.
Before we start answering the questions, Arthur, I think you have to leave right now, right?
I can just answer this question quickly because I'm afraid I have to go. Well, I think this is a very good question. I personally am quite skeptical of using neural network, deep learning, black box techniques to try and fully automate judicial decision making. I think expert systems can serve to automate like simple, small claim cases, which is already the case. I took the example, earlier on of speeding tickets, which is largely automated. So there are aspects of judicial decision making that are less dramatic, where the stakes are somewhat lower than perhaps the cases you're thinking about. In these more dramatic cases where the stakes are high, where we're talking about sending people to prison or releasing them on parole, where we're talking about large transactions they are much more skeptical of full automation, and certainly based on black box algorithms. Although there is definitely progress in developing interpretable machine learning models, but this is still a work in progress, as Maria said. However, I think there's still room to use AI technologies and legal analytics to improve the quality of judicial decision making. I think a colleague of mine at the Toulouse School of Economics, Daniel Chen, used the concept of the bootstrap judge. In fact, if a judge has rendered already a number of decisions, these decisions can be used to analyze, for him to analyze his own decision making, and to tell him, the system can be developed and built to tell him, what decisions he would normally take in such a case, and perhaps point out possible biases he might have. So it can be used, maybe judges sometimes have the tendency to use automated systems to become lazy, as humans tend to in general. But this technology can maybe also be used to highlight the judge's own biases and invite them to think more about the decisions they are sitting over. So I don't think in that sense that the remedy is necessarily worse than the disease. Just we have to think hard about the optimal way to combine technologies and human decision making. I think that's the real challenge.
Let me add something to what Arthur said. I think that it's very important that we understand that artificial intelligence is not one kind of technology, but let's say that a family of technologies. As Arthur said, some technologies are very advanced. There is no problem with transparency, and they are working, and we know they are working. And I guess that those could be very helpful. Arthur, thank you so much. Have a nice rest of the day.
Thank you. Good Maya.
Bye.
Thank you all. Bye.
Okay. So more questions, please.
So I think Jose has the question. So maybe Jose, you can unmute your phone, your microphone.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear
you.
Hello.
Hello. I'm calling from Spain in the middle of confination. As you can imagine, the situation in Spain is very hard. I haven't had the opportunity to hear all the conversations from the beginning, but I appreciate very much the intervention of Maria Dimitru, okay? Because she has insisted in one question that for me is very, very, very important, and it's the necessity to change absolutely the education of laws in the universities from this moment onwards. I consider that this type of education is completely be completely forgotten. We must go ahead with all the different technologies, trying to make it much more not only practical but theoretical, also in a completely different way. And from this basis, I think things could be changed for the future. But at the same time, a little bit, how would you say, unconfident about the future of the IA and law business, unless the language used for this for development of the algorithmic development take place. I mean, in the sense of, I consider that the language used in the humanities is much less precise than the one used in all the let's say experimental scientific areas. Up to until the moment that questions like rescission or resolution confused in the tribunals, it's absolutely impossible to make any type of algorithmic development up to the point of computerizing completely a judicial process or any other type of process, extrajudicial process like ADR and so on. So that's basically what I wanted to say.
Thank you so much. So more questions?
So
Is there any other question?
If you have any questions, please feel free to unmute your microphone. Otherwise, you can have a look at the chat.
Yeah, I look at it, but I don't know if María Jesús or all the others who have posed here their questions want to make them themselves.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, are you listening to me?
Yes,
okay,
we are.
Thank you. Hi, this is Carlota from Spain.
Hello, Carlota.
Hi, thank you for your really interesting insights. I was wondering what would happen with the right to appeal? I mean, does it make sense to create an AI court of appeal? Would it make different decisions to the ones adopted by a lower instance? I'm kind of skeptical about this possible problem. So I'll be very interested in hear your opinions. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlota. By the way, Carlota is a judge, and she is doing her research on artificial intelligence applied to the judicial. So I guess that she knows the answer, but she's asking us. So who wants to answer her?
I can try to answer.
Thank you.
So for me, I have the same approach as you. I believe that there are some niches for full automation, but actually appeal proceedings is not the place to like fully allow judicial automation. Maybe I'm a little conservative in approach, but actually I believe that the human element in the judiciary is and should still be an essential one, and the human oversight is much like flexible, much like human at least, and it's essential for proper functioning of the whole system, because the judiciary is especially sensitive part of the society. People believe that there is a justice. I believe Maria have already mentioned the sense of justice. What does it mean? One of the basic objections against the use of artificial intelligence in justice system is like an attempt to dehumanize the judiciary. And actually, it is not. Actually, it's a good accusation. We cannot let the situation where there will be no human oversight in the specific part of the judicial proceedings. I cannot even imagine the situation that there will be an AI-based appeal proceedings without any like human involvement. It should be unacceptable from the, I believe, also constitutional point of view, but also from like the right to the trial established by Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights and many other international agreements, and we cannot like forget that the human element in this whole process is essential. And when we will not assure society with this element, it would be use of artificial intelligence in judiciary should be considered unacceptable.
Yeah, I fully agree with you, Maria, but I would say that Carlota is right, that probably the solution, if one day there are robot judges, so artificial intelligence that decides on judicial issues, yeah, there should be one special court, because what will be dealt there is not maybe the facts, but how the machine works. So it's a completely different, let's say, kind of proceeding, which will require probably other kind of knowledge. So what I can see is a special court of appeal for this kind of decisions. Any other question, or shall we finish here?
I have, can you hear me?
Yes, we can,
okay.
Justin.
I have one last question. I'm currently writing my thesis on this matter.
Okay.
And I'm still a student, so I'm learning a lot about this. So thank you very much for your insights. I posed some questions in the chat already, and the only one that remained largely unanswered was about the current legal framework surrounding this whole topic, because the guidelines of the EU were mentioned for, but do you actually believe that this is going to get turned into actual legislation where we can see that there are clear requirements for the implementation of such technology?
Okay, I can answer this question, because actually now in the European Union there are no legal initiatives connected with particularly the use of artificial intelligence in the judicial sector. The only legal ground for the automation of judicial decision making is actually the GDPR, Article 22, on the automated decision making, which established the general prohibition of the automated individual decision making, including profiling. But in the paragraph 2, there are three exceptions when we can automate individual decision making, including judicial individual decision making, and 2 of them actually may be potentially used. The first one is because the first one in the letter A is connected with the performance and entering into a contract, and in the field of justice we do not have contracts as a base for the whole operation, but we have letter B and letter C. Letter C, the ground is the data subject's explicit consent on the automated individual decision making. Imagine the judicial proceedings based only on explicit consent of the data subjects. It would be like an organizational nightmare.
Yeah.
But we've got letter B, which is the union or member state law that lays down suitable measures to safeguard the data subject's rights and freedom and legitimate interest, which means that there is an option for a member state to adopt the provisions that allow the judicial automation, but in the same time, suitable measures to safeguard rights and freedoms and legitimate interest must be taken into account in this context. And in the paragraph 3 of Article 22, we've got exemplary safeguards how to do that.
Okay.
Can I also add a little bit on the last question and on the question of the appeal later on? With regard to going to the legislation and kind of justifying through the law the use of technologies, I think the biggest push is in the national legislations of member states, because all the separate nations has different approaches that, like Estonia did all this small claims automation. In Lithuania, we have the traffic tickets automated fully. The small claims is also approaching that, and there are a lot of e-filing, and there is a step by step, but we are getting all these technology related norms in local laws. So I believe if you are researching and looking at the laws, the national laws would be a good example of the advancements in that field. And with regard to the appeals, just a short notice, I agree with Maria that we should have a human element, and I strongly believe that appeals or highest constitutional courts, the higher we go, the more human touch we should have, because the machines will probably never will get the sense of justice, will never understand the spirit of the law and the rule of law like it is, and I think we would never get such wise decisions as we got in the Nuremberg trials, if that would be, you know, an automated or AI driven process, because in that case we had a clearly stated law that, you know, all Jews and all the minorities should be killed, and if you take the automated approach, you have the fact, you have the law, and the decision simply goes out of that. So, but the rule itself is simply was unjust, and it was against all the principles of humanity, which I don't think machines will ever understand. So even being very much optimistic in terms of automation of judiciary, I still believe it is the core element is wise judges and a wise understanding of the spirit of the law in itself. So, and critical thinking and critical analysis of existing rules, I think it is the core of trust in the judiciary system. So although we have a great potential of automation of the small claims and typical claims, the more complex decisions should be made by the humans as a core element of a judiciary. So just a short comment.
Okay, thank you very much. I know that there are more questions, but it's 8:30, so I think it's like dinner time for everybody. Thank you so very, very much to all the ones who have been listening to our fantastic speakers. The topic, I think, is very interesting. I'm sure that we could be talking about this for hours, but I really learned. I hope that you all learn. And in any case, we will put the contact of our speakers maybe in our website, so of ELTA, so you can reach Maria and Paulius and Arthur and ask them more things. Thank you so much. Have a very, very nice day, and I wish you all a lot of good health so that we can see you in our next webinar. Thank you. Bye-bye.